So today I am in Manchester, and that's because we're going to be looking this week at the Industrial Revolution. And as we'll see, the Industrial Revolution in a lot of ways really started in this particular city, so it's of quite a lot of significance. And in the course of looking at the Industrial Revolution, we're really going to see why in this particular place, at this particular time, in the late 18th century, did we start to see a real major change in the way the economy was organized and in the way production and consumption were made. So what's the plan for this series of lectures? Well, we're going to start by just defining what industrialism is and why it's different from traditional societies and traditional ways of doing things. So we're going to look at fossil fuels, the role of labor, the new forms of capital and class structure. We're also going to be then looking at traditional society and the ways that traditional society sort of were organized around a totally different set of institutions. And we're also going to try and understand why the Industrial Revolution happened in Britain in particular, because in a lot of ways China would have been just as likely to have started this, but for a range of reasons they didn't. So we're going to try and understand why in particular in Europe, and then in particular in Britain, and then even more specifically why here in Manchester. Why is it here that all of this gets set off? And once we understand that, then we will be able to see what the consequences of this is. So what happens once the first Industrial Revolution kicks off? Because there's all sorts of social problems that emerge. There's new public health concerns, new housing and philanthropic concerns emerge. And in a lot of ways it's completely chaotic and disorganized. And the second Industrial Revolution involves a change of production. So whereas in the first Industrial Revolution we would have steam and railways and iron, in the second we have much more electricity, chemicals, but we also have new ways of getting the state involved in managing these social consequences. So what happens in the second half of the 19th century is really a big shift and a change in the way the economy is managed, and that really sets us up for the conclusion of this sort of era, really from the late 18th century to the turn of the 20th century, is we eventually get to a position where Fordism starts to take place. And much later in a series of courses we're going to look at the transition from Fordism to post-Fordism. But for now we're just going to look at what is it about the Industrial Revolution that's so significant. So today we will be looking at the Industrial Revolution and what is industrialism. So what do we mean when we use this term? Essentially, we are looking at a system of production that emerged in the late 18th and early 19th century, and it was a system of manufacture with a central site being the factory. So this involved a few different things that came together. So first you have technology. Industrial production involved the invention and integration of new forms of technology. This increased the speed and capacity of manufacturing output. So this was not just a quantitative change in that you're producing more goods and faster, but it's also a qualitative change. You can produce new things that you couldn't produce in a non-industrial way. You also have free labor. So what do we mean by free labor? Does that mean that everybody's working for free? No. Individuals are no longer tied by the medieval system of bonds and duties to work a particular piece of land. So that meant that they were free to sell their labor on the market. Now, the division labor is something that Adam Smith went into quite a lot of detail in his Wealth of Nations, and he uses the example of pin making. A pin that is manufactured, and normally you'd have a craftsman that would make individual tools for individual parts, custom built, but dividing the labor up, and you spread them out in a factory or a workhouse in a certain way where one person is doing one task. So with a pin, Adam Smith looks at one person is beating it with a hammer and they're making the pin straight, another is filing it down, another is hitting it with a hammer, and so on. So what this allows is a much faster production of a greater quantity of the same goods by breaking up each of the production processes into its component parts. But this also involved a de-skilling of the laborer. So whereas in the past you might have appreciated the craftsman's particular facility and skill, in this instance you could really replace each member of the production line with another member, another laborer, which meant that the humans were increasingly kind of treated as cogs within this machine, so they were just another tool in the process. Another element that gets integrated in industrialism for more or less the first time is a massive investment in fossil fuels in the production process. So we have coal and later oil being drawn into the production process to vastly increase the speed with which these processes can develop. Initially, this would have been done through water wheels and water mills and so forth, windmills, but the integration of carbon-based power meant that a huge amount of energy was able to be invested into these processes. We also have factories and textiles as being one of the major sort of structural, spatial forms of organizing work. And these factories were very dangerous places to work. They often employed women and children working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week for extremely low wages. There were often cotton would get in the air and into people's mouths. It was extremely hot and dangerous. People regularly lost limbs. And so it was really not a pleasant place to work, but it was the sort of origins of the Industrial Revolution, was the investment in this particular spatial organization of this new divided fossil fuel-based, technology-based form of production. So before we look at all of the causes and features of industrialism itself, we're going to take a step back and look at traditional society, because
the technology itself was around during the Middle Ages and early modern period. What was different was putting it all together in a system that really produced change almost automatically. And really that's the biggest thing that the Industrial Revolution as an economic system introduces is this change as a kind of automatic feature.
But we will pick this up next time. So do subscribe to the channel. Press the subscribe button to follow our academic college courses, including Understanding Modernity. With me, I'm Dr. Eric Lybeck, and next time we will pick up the Industrial Revolution Part 2. Looking forward to seeing you again then.